Okay, Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you everyone for attending. It means a lot that you've taken your time out to obviously attend the workshop today, to do something that will be beneficial for yourselves and inshallah for your children. This is also beneficial for those who are, will be mothers one day, who are intending on being teachers or aspiring to help those in the community with reading. There's two things. I have given you all green folders, so you will need to have them with you today. I have the PowerPoint in and of itself as a kind of slide format, so if you want to take notes on that, please feel free, or if you have a notepad, whatever you want, that's entirely up to you. But this is something just to aid you through today's workshop. Also, it's really fundamental to understand that I don't want this to be like this is someone from the brewery addressing you as parents. The initial agreement when we came onto this project is that you are like the co-parents. You are like the co-teachers even. That means that, yes, part of the learning takes place at the brewery, but the whole point of giving you back time is obviously, of course, to spend more time with your children, but obviously to be active participants within their learning process. With that in mind, today is going to have a bit of theory aspects to it, and just so you can be like, well, how does this relate to me as a parent? It would definitely relate to you as a co-teacher. So just bear that in mind, that actually this is really good for me to know. This probably gives me a bit of a stepping stone. This probably gives me a bit of an edge as a parent to help me understand some of the research behind supporting my child in reading. So I just kind of wanted to lay that as a backdrop before I go any further. So this is the contents of what we'll be covering today. So we'll be looking at reading habits, EEF, which is probably absolutely fine if you don't know what that means at the moment. Looking at vocabulary, which is really important in the development for our children. Some strategies of reading effectively to your child. If your child is struggling or reluctant reader, may not be the case now, it normally isn't at this age, but there will probably be a point in their lives where they are a little reluctant. Just looking at what comprehension is, what the curriculum requirements are. I notice sometimes there's a bit of anxiety, or because you have signed up to a brand new provision, there's always something in the back of your mind saying, well, what would they be doing at school, and what are the requirements in school? So we're going to be looking at that in some detail. Again, as co-teachers, you need to have an understanding of what reading looks like from reception all the way up to year 6. And reading for pleasure is just actually something else we're going to look at. We're going to look at some good quality books that you may be interested in purchasing for your children. So the first question is, of course, this is the uncomfortable bit, because we can't be expecting really strong readers at home within our children if, of course, we look at ourselves in the mirror and identify that maybe our reading habit isn't the best. But I don't want to make that assumption. So my opening question for you to discuss with your partner or whoever you're sitting next to is, what is your reading habit? What is your reading habit? And I have 4 questions. This is just a prompt discussion between yourself and your partner. How often do you read? It's good that you're with your partner because you can't lie about it, you see. Because do you enjoy reading? How could you improve your reading habit? Do you mind sitting next to Sarah just for this activity? Or? Yeah. And does your child see you read? Again, the discussion isn't limited to these 4 questions, but the overarching question is, what is your reading habit? So I'll just give you a minute to talk to the person next to you, and then I will put you on the spot. No, I do. I heard some defensive statements straight away. What do you mean I don't read? Of course I read. questions?
It's after he's sleeping.
How do you prevent
Okay.
No, they don't. 1 week, 2
Oh, sorry.
every day.
That's why I said I should.
Thank you. Okay. So, any thoughts? I'm going to be asking Sunas, Sugra, Ashfaq, and Waleed, please. So, let's start. Just so you know, the question is coming to you, so you can prepare a response. Ashfaq, any thoughts? Did I say your name?
For my partner did.
Well, whatever.
Yeah.
Any thoughts?
So Saad reads 2 to 3 times a week. Altogether 6 to 7 hours. And then how can he improve his reading habit is setting a time, scheduled reading rather than just random reading. He does enjoy reading, and Ibrahim does see him read quite often when he reads.
Brilliant. I can't remember what other names I said. Yes, about yourself or about us, so it's up to you. Whatever.
Does it have to be like a reading book, or it can be Quran?
Good question. Yeah, no, any form of reading.
Okay, yeah. So these days I'm not reading like normal books. I'm learning tajweed, so I'm more focusing on that. So yeah, whenever I'm teaching my kids, I'm revising my lessons as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Saad was like, well, if Quran was a caveat, then obviously every single day. Yes, sorry.
So we didn't break it down quite as well as they did.
Okay.
But between the two of us, we said that we are quite stretched because Sarah's doing A levels. So she said she's got 6 books that she has to read just for the course. And I've got 2 little ones. So I said, between us, it is quite difficult to keep up and maintain good habits of reading outside of what we're doing.
Yep.
We do try to read as often as we can. And Sarah and both of us said that we would like to pick up a book in the future and try to read. Of course, like in terms of book clubs and things like this, those are priorities and we read in those.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
outside of those, I don't think I'm reading very much.
Yeah, but it's really interesting because those things do matter and those things do count. So when I'm asking you, are you reading? Well, actually, attending a book club once a week or fortnightly does
That
contribute.
would just mean that my child does not get to see me read because I'm reading in the book club as opposed
Yes.
to at home.
Fantastic. Okay. Was there anybody else? Was there someone on this table else? Khabar.
Into his reading habits, yeah, he reads regular, anywhere between, it doesn't have a fixed time, but it could be up to an hour,
Yeah.
related to his work. He does enjoy it, and his children do sometimes see him, but because it's often on the laptop, so he doesn't have like a physical book as such, they might not know that he's actually reading.
So you're going to go through that door to right?
Myself, I try to do at least 30 minutes a day.
30 minutes a day. You strike me as a type to be able to do that. 30 minutes. It's done. Okay, no, it's just that news. We'll need your next, so in case we'll pull behind your response, inshallah. I'm buying you some time here. So I'll take it. Yes, Waleed.
So in terms of my partner, how often does she read? Probably daily or every other day. Does she enjoy reading? Yes, because it's a bit of a grounding exercise. Does your child see you read? Yeah, to the point that sometimes the children are saying, she's not reading, how come she's not reading at the moment, why don't you read that book? Probably the total flip to me at the moment, in that I enjoy reading, when I get time to, when I do, but I certainly don't read enough as much as I should.
Yeah?
So, yeah.
Okay, mashallah. Yeah, really interesting question. Really, when it makes you look within yourself. It's really interesting what type of feedback we get. Anybody else want to add to this? What I didn't pick up on? Before I move on? No? Okay. So these are just some quick wins of some reading habits. This reminds me of my dear friend Saad. Sorry, Saad, put you on the spot. It does remind me of you though. So having a set goal of how much you would like to read daily and not how much you would like to read in a month is a really important strategy. Because if you say, I am going to read this book this month, what do you think is going to happen?
You're going to read it all in the last day?
Yes. You will do, you will cram it in basically. You'll pick up the book on the 28th of that month, okay? So trying to develop a daily habit will help you massively. Usually scheduling reading very early in the morning works. This is slightly subjective. It depends on what your routine is at home. Some parents strictly wait for the children to be in bed. I can't, because when they go to bed, I'm normally going to bed as well. Some of them behind that beautiful time after Fajr is just the ideal time. Does anybody have any, who has a set routine of when they mainly read and then can share Ashfaq?
Yeah, after Fajr.
After Fajr?
Morning.
Anybody outside of after Fajr?
Kids asleep.
Kids asleep. So two opposites, but that's absolutely fine. Usually it's early morning though, because actually we're a bit burnt out in the evenings. Exercise primes your brain from learning. I picked this up from this book that I was exposed to, and I thought actually this has got some really good stuff in it. That actually when you exercise, it's proven, if you were to pick up a book right after doing some exercise, your brain is actually primed to be receptive to what you are reading. Eliminate distractions. What are the distractions in your home when it comes to reading? Atif, what's your distractions at home?
Could be just basics of like television.
Sorry?
Television or
TV?
Yeah, TV.
Killer. Asfar?
What distractions? Kids.
Kids,
Eliminate the kids.
obviously.
Whoa.
The whole reason we're here, obviously. Gone those kids. Sarah, any distractions at home when you're reading? Mobile phone?
Yeah.
I guessed that one actually. Saad?
Biggest distraction, my wife probably.
It's his phone.
Right.
We actually spent
He's getting big figures out.
So funny you say that. When I'm reading to my child, I've said to my mum, said to my wife about 50, 60 times, when I'm reading to him or her, please don't interrupt. Like, just don't interrupt. But the penny hasn't dropped yet. So yeah, big distraction. Jawad?
Probably like work.
Work. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big distraction for me because I'm always bringing work home even. Now accountability is a big one, okay? Especially if you are a person who just doesn't manage to make time for reading. I mentioned book clubs in particular because I think many of us are actually part of a book club in one way or another. And actually, if you weren't part of that book club, would you read that book that has been proposed in the book club? And the answer is probably no. Being part of something where you're accountable, I think Ustad Ali Ahmed had a book club running for about 7 years. And the reason it was successful, one of the reasons it was so successful was because Ali Ahmed's setup was, we had a group of people, Assalamu alaikum, they chose what book that they are reading, and because they participated in the process of electing a book, they had to be part of the process to read the book. Now, so accountability is really good. However, it depends on how serious you are about taking your accountability serious. Okay, the second point I wanted to talk about was the Education Endowment Foundation. Now, this is just a really important website. Remember, if I'm addressing you as co-teachers, you might want to know actually if I want to support my child, if I want to understand what helps them with their literacy or with their reading or with their writing, where can I go to? So this is actually a website by academics, by experts, by teachers, and they write on aspects of primary and I believe secondary school teaching as well. So the reason again I want to signpost this because if you want to just learn more, build up your own subject knowledge and how to support your child or your children, this is a fantastic website. I've included an article in your pack so you can read in your own time, and it's a beautiful article called Preparing for Literacy. And just kind of bring to your attention, it actually says that on that sheet. Running workshops, showing parents how to read and talk about books with their children effectively is an effective strategy in supporting your child. So this actual workshop, you actually being here today, is proven to be a key component of supporting your child in their learning. And this is, backed up with lots of research. Developing vocabulary. Now this is really, really important. This is probably one of the most important aspects of today's workshop. One of the reasons it's really important is because there's a lot of misconception from parents regarding how to develop vocabulary. So I really want to go into it, and actually there's going to be a little workshop activity based on developing vocabulary. So I'm going to come back to this first point later. But what we do in schools, and I don't know if it's the same in secondary, and if there's any English teacher you can correct me, but we always try to identify what words would really benefit my child, what words are worth them remembering, okay? And the words that are worth them remembering are words that they can use in various different contexts. And what we have is tier 1 words, tier 2 words, tier 3 words, and this is all based on the work of Isabel Beck. I don't normally recommend, I don't normally say, you must have this book, but this is a must-have book that you must have on your bookshelf if you are really interested in how to develop your child's vocabulary. Every research expert, be it Tom Sherrington, be it whoever it is, Kai Corbett, anyone, they always refer to this book. So that's why I've got a specific slide on this book, just in case you do want to purchase it. It is expensive. This cost me £27, but a lot of valuable information. So what are tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 words? This will make more sense that if you open up your pack, I have a sheet there that says tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Just looks like this, and it gives you examples. Now, tier 1 words are just your basic words. This kind of words that the children are going to pick up anyway. If we jump to the opposite, tier 3 words are content specific. Yes, these are really impressive words, but they're only words that they can only really talk about when they're speaking about a specific subject, okay? What parents tend to do is they really go in hard on the tier 3 words because it sounds darn impressive that their child can say metamorphosis and photosynthesis and whatever have you, okay? But if I was to ask you, when would your child use that word outside of that context, it would be a real struggle. However, if you look at tier 2 words are the real words that you want your child to be able to use. It's a word that they're going to find in various different contexts, and they are words that will definitely increase their vocabulary, inshallah. I've done that famous thing where I've dropped my clicker because I was walking around talking. Anybody seen a clicker? No, I do this.
What's the where the book was?
Yes, there you go. See, back tracing my steps. So it's really important actually to really spend some time understanding this. Now the next question would be is how do we identify these tier 2 words? Okay? So really good question, and actually you need a bit of practice in doing that. In your packs, it's really, I've got this here, and I've actually taken this out of this book. If I could just explain it to you before you go into it. I want you, with the person next to you, to read page 25. Read page 26, and at the bottom of 26, after she's giving you some theory and some explanation, it says your turn. Then she gives you a little passage, and just with the person next to you, I want you to read that passage and highlight or underline what you think the tier 2 words are, okay? And if you finish that, you can carry on reading, because actually, it's just a really important few pages that I've taken out. So feel free to read the entire document if you like. So just again, have a read, and then when it comes to your turn, have a go at trying to identify the tier 2 words in this little passage here. Is that clear? And then I would be asking people to just give me their thoughts or summarize what's being read, because it is actually really interesting. Right, off you go. It's okay. Two more minutes? Yeah? I remember that's my auntie name. Marcy Butler. You're taking that bus too? I find it really That's okay, take time.
It's a bit child dependent. Meaning, you know, a child who's 5 years old, 6 years old. The tiers.
It's an age
Yeah, age difference.
But it's not linear, it's not like this is for 4-year-olds.
No, that's what it says. So, like child dependent.
Yeah. But even a child would have their age limit.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? What do you think?
No, that's what I was saying. That's what we were. How do you know?
Yeah, again, not we studied that as a co-teacher. To have this, and they get it older. It's a bit much. My wife was doing this.
Yeah. So I was saying tier 1 is what he uses right now. Tier 2 is something you want him to improve on, and he'll get that into like his tier 1 as a window. And tier 3 is completely
Tier 3 just makes you like really impressed as a parent. Although you know it doesn't have much, doesn't work in many places, but it makes me feel darn good. Okay, one more minute, inshallah. Okay, those packs are to keep, so inshallah if you have could I just have some initial feedback, thoughts? Or can anybody summarize what they read, what they learnt, what was discussed, what was written? I would ask Saad, but you clearly weren't listening. Jawad, any thoughts?
Yeah.
Great, nice talking to you, Jawad.
There's a lot of words that we go over, we don't really think about how important they could be.
Yeah.
That child's vocabulary. I think if we practice them as well, when we speak to them fully.
Okay, sorry? Shakra, any thoughts?
Just following on from what I said, I don't think that it's hard for us to actually include that in our spoken language, because spoken language is so different to written language.
Mm-hmm.
So we wouldn't use the word, I don't know, parents, or emerging, or haunting in our spoken language.
Really? Yes.
Well, I wouldn't, anyway.
That's really interesting.
Well, I think when you're telling stories, you can use those words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
If you making up stories.
definitely.
But what about if you were actively aware of these words, and then actively now had the mind frame that we need to incorporate these into our oral language? Would that possibly work?
Yeah, I think
Yeah?
so, for sure.
I've noticed, especially when more recent ones. So with my daughter, when I used to speak to originally, I used to break down all the sentences.
Yeah.
And as time's gone, especially in the past few months, I've started. It's always comes back to just end up using certain words.
Yeah.
And she all the time then ask, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I can't think of an example right now, so it's been happening quite a few the last 2-3 weeks as well.
Yeah.
And the basic words, they're like these tier 2 words.
Yeah.
But she'll actually ask, and you're actually explaining it to her now. She's actually understanding, she can actually connect it. But I think this is also either you're doing it naturally, otherwise, as you said, you have to maybe while you're speaking every now and then remind yourself.
Yes.
And try to bring those words in. Otherwise, I think it's going to happen naturally. Otherwise.
And also the fact that these words, they are high frequency words
Yeah.
that are not utilized normally in day-to-day language.
Yeah.
It shows the importance of reading a lot more, because these words you're going to come across a lot more in books.
Yes.
So that they'll be exposed to them at least through books rather than even if it's not through speech.
Yes, there's so many things to take from the responses there. One is the whole thing about modeling good language, isn't it? Like, how many of us are actively being mindful of how we speak with our children, with the understanding of, yes, it's good manners, but also developing their language. And also, if you're not using tier 2 words very often, but you were to look at the tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 words, where would you put your own communication with your child? You might find that more often than not, they're in tier 1 words, okay? Which is, are you doing that because that's the level they're at? Or are you doing it because you don't think they can handle more challenging vocabulary? Or are you doing that because you don't think they're clever enough? So it's about actually stretching ourselves, but having that constant frame of mind that I need to model really strong responses to my child. Because how else are they going to have a more enhanced vocabulary? So that's just something to think about. How did you find the activity? It's hard, isn't it?
It's hard.
It is hard. We did it in school and it was like, oh, this is actually really challenging. Actually, this isn't easy. And the other point is it takes practice. And it requires two of you to be quite active in the process. But yeah, really good responses. But we'll go into more things. So, like I said, I had.
Sorry, can I just ask a question? So you know the premise of like moving from the premise of the different tiers, is it around the interchangeability of certain words? Because what I'm struggling with slightly is, how does this differ from the synonym of a word? So where we've highlighted some words there.
So when it says, it's not saying synonyms, it's saying an idea. So a child might have an idea of this word because it relates to this thing. It's not synonymous in that it's the exact same. It's just kind of like a scaffold. A child can actually reach this word because he has some prior knowledge, has some ability to be able to access the vocabulary. Not necessarily that they're synonymous. You about to say something, Ashwak, like you apply it?
Close that so the recording doesn't get affected.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, just close it.
Is that okay with you? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So again, it's a very, very good book. I do have my own copy. As I said, because it's quite expensive, if you want to have a look at it before you purchase one, done that famous thing again. People need to keep an eye around putting stuff up and putting things down. That's what I do. Right. So just going to go a bit more into vocab. Play together. It's crucial for developing communication skills. So children learn to make new sounds, talk in full sentences, ask questions and understand how interactions work. It also helps them to communicate with other children. This is one of the strategies behind at the Growery why we have continuous provision, why we have play. Yes, they enjoy it. Yes, it's fun, but it's not just a break time, not in the eyes of the professionals. We're actually making sure they're having conversations, they're playing, they're communicating, they're learning vital skills, which at your children's age at the Growery is more important than many other aspects of their learning. Don't dumb down. So this is one of the points. This is a key word. I've done this in bold. They understand more words than they are able to use. You know this, right? People always ask me, how come you can't speak your language very well, but you understand your mum perfectly? I understand, which I'm really receptive. I can pick up all the vocab, but it's harder for me to speak it. So bear this in mind. There's no need to oversimplify a way in which you talk to your child. I can't emphasize this enough. If you just had a kind of model stronger language, model tier 2 words, your child would just pick it up, believe me. There's so much more in your the way you say it, your body language, what you are doing with your hands or your facial expressions that gives your child everything they need to support them in stronger vocabulary, okay? Positive reinforcement. When your child, see that the problem is, we make a big fuss and get the child really excited when they use tier 3 words. When they say metamorphosis, oh my God, you said metamorphosis, can you believe that? If you do the same with tier 2 words, which they can actually use in different contexts, it'll have a massive impact. Now the entire point here is if you look at these points closely, none of these actually have a lot to do with the words in a written context. These are all oral. Play with your child, then you're going to have that communication. Don't dumb down when you're speaking to your child. And a positive reinforcement is all oral. Now this comes to a huge misconception again that parents have. Parents have this huge thing that get my child to read, and it will build their vocabulary. That is true, but the emphasis is on read. The child needs to be exposed to a word about 12 times to fully take it in. So imagine if you're trying to expose a child to a word, a tier 2 word, and they have to be exposed to it 12 times. You're either hoping that in 12 different books, the exact word is there, which is extremely unlikely, or that they read so much that they are exposed to these words on 12 separate occasions. However, imagine if you are orally speaking to your child and you use these words, how much more likely are you to use the word orally 12 times for them to take it in? That's why children actually think, oh, my child speaks so well because he or she reads so much. No, a child probably speaks so well because their parents speak so well. Yeah, because their parents are well spoken. So it's very important to have that clear understanding that actually modeling the language when you speak is a lot more important but it's a lot faster progress than having your child read a lot. And I've just got a passage, I just highlighted a few bits regarding this. So she says, the problem is that it is not so easy to learn words from written context. Written context lacks many of the features of oral language that support learning new word meaning, such as intonation, body language, and shared physical surroundings. As such, written language is a far less effective vehicle for learning new words than oral language. In terms of learning new words in the course of reading, it does occur, but in small increments. In order for any word learning to occur from reading, 2 conditions need to be met. First, students must read widely enough to encounter a substantial number of unfamiliar words. That means they must read enough text to encounter lots of words, that they must read text of sufficient difficulty to include words that are not already familiar. And the second one is students must have the skills to infer word meanings, information from the context they read. Okay? Is that clear? Does that make sense? So it's really interesting that actually the modelling of really good language, you're likely to have a lot more progress, a lot more progress than just reading, okay? But obviously we want to hit both. We want to give them plenty of reading opportunities, give them plenty of things to read about, and to hopefully build their vocabulary. I just want you to read, this is a really important curve. Hermann Ebbinghaus was an absolute legend. He did a lot of research and a lot of work on building memory, okay? And why he said that, when a child first learns something, they learn it at 100%. Then the very next day, their memory goes down to 20%. They can only remember 80% of what was learned. Then if you review the learning, you can take them back up to 100%. And then 2 days later, it will drop back down to 80%. And if you review the learning, it goes back to 100%. So we can use this in all aspects of learning. I think specifically, if you think of muraja of Quran, memorizing Quran, this would really hit home. That when you or your child tries to learn a surah, they have to review it almost every single day to get it to 100%. If you don't review it, well, you can have a look at the table in your slides in front of you. The trend is a downward trajectory. Also, you can think about this in maths. You can think about this in reading, in vocabulary, in anything. That unless the learning is reviewed, if you do review the learning often, you can go back to 100%. And honestly, the thought of memorizing Quran really hits home this point here.
You know that the timeline of the elapsed time. What does that normally stretch across? Is that constant?
Where, sorry?
So you know you've got 0 to 7 days.
Yeah.
What's the general suggestion around how long that goes on for? As in, does that need to be regular learning past regular reviewing
Before
past
it
7
stays
days?
at 100%?
Yeah.
I would just say constantly needs to be reviewed. I don't know for 100%, but if you follow the trajectory, it'll get stronger and stronger. But Hafiz, how long does it take? I mean, it's possible for you to get to 100%.
To stick to the long-term memory, they say reviewing for a spaced out event or for about 21 days goes into long-term memory, but even long-term memory is not permanent memory. If you don't, so for example, after it's a long-term memory, you could leave it for a year, it'll be still there somewhat. So when you review, it'll be easier than learning from scratch.
Yeah, because I'm guessing that follows the same trend on that. If you look at the 0 to 1 day, the 1 to 3 days, and the 3 to 6 days, I'm guessing if you were to extend that x-axis even further, you'd see there's probably a bit more of a gap in between each one, right?
Yeah, the gap increases each day because you don't have to do it every day. The learning, you just it's 1 day, then 2 days, then 5 days, then 7 days, then the gap will keep on increasing. Then once a year, things like this. Unless you learn something that's above the current level. So if you learn 2 plus 2 is 4, and you review it, that same type of figure, but in next year you're learning 24 plus 28. So the same mechanisms at play, but as a higher level. So the bottom was already getting revised.
Okay, yeah.
Does that make sense as well?
How often do you have to revise Quran now? Now that you're Hafiz, yeah. Still daily?
More or less.
Still daily. How long have you been Hafiz for?
5, 10, nearly 10.
10 years. Wow. Okay, so now I'm just gonna. These are just very quick wins, but I still feel the need that maybe they need to be made explicit. Some of these, of course, you're already doing. Some of these are like obvious. So I'll just run through them quickly. So top tips about how to help your child read at home. So the first thing is about just following the reader books that we have with you. I just wanted to hand these out just in case you're unaware that at the front of these books they kind of have some comprehension questions you could ask. They have some ideas which are quite good actually. I quite like them. So start with your child's reading scheme book. Try to read other books at the same level of your child's reading book. We'll have a discussion about how to identify your child's reading level, or if a book is too hard for them. Some children just prefer non-fiction. Some parents get really hung up that their child only goes for non-fiction books. That's absolutely fine. You know, over time, over years, sometimes they're changing, genre changes. And if they are more inclined to learning information and facts and information and are fascinated by things and they can't really appreciate some of the nuances in fiction. That's absolutely fine. So please don't get hung up over that. Many children love graphic novels or comics. Again, some parents feel the need to restrict these things from their child. However, if your child really enjoys a graphic novel, then that's absolutely fine. Graphic novels actually require some inference. They've got to read between the lines to understand what's happening from picture to picture. And it's really good for developing their imagination. So one of the points in the discussion we had below was, oh, what type of reading are you talking about? Are we including Quran? Are we including this? Any type of reading is good for your child. If you're going out on a drive and you want them to read some signs, or if you're cooking and you want them to read the ingredients list, anything is beneficial. It's actually really nice for them to have, I think the key word is repertoire, that they have a repertoire of things that they have access to build on their reading. Try to encourage your child to tackle a longer fiction story. Some of the children that we have, especially those in year 2, are at the point where they can actually starting to handle bigger books. So do that. It builds on their reading stamina. It helps them to learn about characters, get more involved in a character, and it develops imagination and empathy. But the reading stamina is a really important one. If you can focus on give your child opportunities to build on their reading stamina, then you'll have those lovely moments where your child is reading for 40 minutes and you're on your phone. Audiobooks. Please don't downplay audiobooks. The best thing about audiobooks is if your child's listening to it on the journey, you can probably catch a moment where they're just thinking, they're building a picture in their mind because they have to kind of follow through the story. Also with audiobooks is, just like when you read to your child, you can probably read a more challenging text because they don't have to deal with the challenging words, but you're just reading it to them. The same with audiobooks. The cognitive load is really off the child. They're just sitting back, relaxing, and appreciating the story. So don't downplay audiobooks. Especially with children your age, listening to rhyme and patterns and traditional tales is really nice in audiobooks. That really will help them with their writing and developing writing ideas.
Can I just add on to that?
You can.
Waleed's suggestion from Audible, they have a dramatized version of books where their different characters play, different people are playing it and they're talking. So it's not just one person reading a book.
Yeah.
Each one is saying different things, so it sounds like a play that they're listening to, which are really, really good. So from Audible they have that dramatized version of books, which are brilliant for kids.
And also, when I'm saying audiobooks, this isn't a story on YouTube where they're watching it. That's not the same thing, okay? An audiobook is they're not seeing it. They're just listening, okay? And if your child struggles and drowns at the beginning, that's fine. They'll learn to swim. They'll learn to live.
I wanted to ask, so I like Ishfaq was mentioning, I got our kids into audiobooks and we were going on journeys and we found it really, really beneficial. And I could see the benefit of that. Like I could see like his imagination being sparked and like. But then I was trying to weigh this up against, I don't know who I was having a conversation with. You know, just that element that you're going on a long journey. You need to find. They say kids need to find some level of boredom. They need to find the opportunity to just look out the window, explore things out the window on a journey. There's a part of me that was thinking, are they losing out on that opportunity because they're immersed in an audiobook? Because the only chance we'll get to do an audiobook is typically when we're in the car.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the thoughts are in terms of.
No, that's fine. And a child feeling some element of boredom has its place. It's just simple practical solutions. You probably wouldn't do it every single journey, but sometimes it's nice to play practical an audio, and sometimes it's nice to just allow them to. It's so nice to allow them to get bored or appreciate their surroundings. If they're doing it though, don't put yourself in a conundrum where, man, if it wasn't for this audiobook, they'll be appreciating the M40 right now. Yeah. So do you know what I mean? If it's actually, you have to kind of make that judgment of actually, if I was driving through the Lake District, or if it is actually, or whatever, you just want them to be able to have some solace in their own thoughts. That's fine. But you just make that decision. And if it doesn't work, you put on an audiobook, or if it is working, you just keep it off. Yeah. So try not to be so rigid. Jess.
Can I just say something from my experience I was a single mom. I used to get my children to sit in the car, and when I was driving, I used to get the youngest actually, used to get him to read the number plates of cars so they recognised letters.
Wow.
And it was a game we played as I was driving, just to keep them quiet and occupied. So that is something, I mean, as silly as it sounds, but they recognise the letters.
It's not silly because I actually vividly remember Ali Muhammad, which is Auntie's eldest son. Whenever I would drive with him, I used to do some plumbing work with him. And I was so impressed of his knowledge of the roads and signs. You know, Ali Muhammad has great understanding of where he's going.
Navigator.
Yes, but he said that when I was younger, I used to navigate. So my parents and my dad, and it would have me, and I used to navigate with mum. And he has such a strong grasp. And that's why whenever we're stuck in traffic, he'd be like, let's go down there, go down there, go down there. And I used to find that I find it interesting, the fact that he pinned it back to his childhood, that this is something that they used to do, that he used to do with yourself in the car. So this was a conversation that I actually had with Ali Muhammad. I lost my clicker again. I'm amazing. Right, I found it. Yes. Yes. So thank you for that. Will you answer your question?
Yeah.
We'll have a short break. So just in case I didn't make it clear before, we should be aspiring to tier 2. The oral modelling, or when we are speaking around our children or to our children. I know if you feel that actually we don't use we don't use these words in everyday speech, you need to make it so that you're using at least more of these words in everyday speech. I'll share you the story that when my wife, we went to Oxford for my son in the hospital, and she doesn't even speak English, but she learned so much English in Oxford because she was in the ward for 12 hours a day. And she just said to me that they speak so differently in Oxford than they do in Slough. And sometimes the unfortunate stigma is when people are like, oh, you must be from Slough, it's because some of the language choices that we use in speech. I'm not saying you, Shakra, in particular, I'm just saying generally that's the thing. So actually, making a conscious effort of using tier 2 words, and it might be, if you think of some practical solutions, it might be that Ashfaq is reading to his twins or both of them, and then he'll go to his wife and say, oh, you know, this is a nice word. Can we make this a focus for the next 2 or 3 days? And then every time in conversation, you try to just bring up those words as organically as possible without making it forced. It's an effective strategy of getting your child to pick up on that vocabulary. Yes.
I had an interesting observation. I was saying this to my missus as well, especially about the stuff that we started at the start before the break as well. So very close to home for me, my nephew from my eldest brother, he speaks very, very well. He's what, 10, 11? And everyone's always said like he speaks like an Etonian. And it's interesting. The reason why is because my eldest brother, he's got a very wide spectrum of vocabulary that he uses, just generally. From when we were young, he was always slightly different to us because he was very well read. And it was when we were growing up, we spoke like people from Slough, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, bro, why do you that sentence you could have said in half the words?
Yes.
Why do you have
What's your
all
problem?
Yeah, exactly. And we used to because we used to feel almost intimidated by it because you'd think you just had to be too intelligent for me, and I can't hold a conversation with you. But that's all from a wide spectrum of reading from when he was very, very young. Now, who he got married to, she was exactly like that. So their default in the way they speak is like tier 2, right? And they do that with their son. So he's just default like that as well. So if you see him interacting with my other nieces and nephews, there is a significant difference. So it was just an interesting observation there.
He's got Asian friends at school. He does try to.
Yeah, exactly. There's that as well. So the school that he's at as well, he's got some Asian kids, and he's trying to tone down his vocab to suit that. But I mean, even still, like his mother tongue quote, whatever it is, his base tongue is modelled based upon his parents.
Yeah, so to have the combination of parents being well spoken and having a wide breadth of reading. The point's not been made that reading is ineffective. It does work as long as it's a wide range of reading, and I think that's a big tick that your elder brother did. Anything else about anything? So I'm going to go on to a different section now, just about this tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 words. I was about to say something. I had this niggling point I was going to make, but it's completely left me. Yeah. Right, struggling or reluctant readers. Now, I don't want to go into this part where you're thinking, well, my child's a great reader and I'm a great reader, so whatever. There will be a point, especially when you come to when your child makes the transition from primary to secondary age. I'm not quite sure what it is. I think primary has a huge focus on reading, and secondary not so much. And also, when the child hits that secondary age, they've got a lot more other things to worry about, and a lot more other priorities, and a lot more other things that they're self-conscious about, rather than reading. So there's some reasons to why the reading kind of can go into a decline if it's not managed. So, and some of these general pieces of advice, even if your child's not a reluctant reader, it's still very good to have in your bank. So, keep anxiety levels down. This is generally across the board. Now, if your child struggles in reading, you don't want to prolong the reading experience, okay? The story should be short, you should keep smiling. However, research indicates the number one anxiety for a child when reading is their parents, okay? If you imagine when you start driving and you learn how to drive, and how you feel with a driving instructor next to you and that type of scary feeling when you don't really know what you're doing, that's exactly what your child's going through, that kind of similar feeling right now, because reading is a complex skill and it's a new thing that they're only starting to learn now. They're only 5-6 years old, okay? When a parent kind of smacks that expectation on the child that Fulan is reading so much better than you, then it will really negatively impact your child. And I can't speak enough about, I've worked in a school for 10 years, and I can't explain when I see a child struggling in their learning, and then I meet the parents, and then the penny drops. Well, that's why, isn't it? Because their parents are absolutely lambasting them every time they make a mistake. Okay. Make time to share books. Again, for a struggling reader specifically, you would really try to speak about the book, get them really excited about the book. When I had to do my PGC course, when I applied for it, the interview process was we had to take a book and we had to share. We had to discuss part of the interview process. How would I teach this book? So it's quite a daunting task. The worst thing that an applicant could do when sharing a book with a child. The worst thing that an applicant could do when sharing a book with a child is just open the book and start reading. If we did that, we knew that we wouldn't get our place on the PGCE. So, why? Because you're supposed to talk about the front cover. What's going on? What can you see? What do you think it's going to be about? Why do you think it's going to be about that? Do you see anything that gives you any clues? What's going on in the background? What's that red dot? What is it? What could it be? Why is it there? Is it significant? Is it important? Ooh, who's the author? How do you know who the author is? Should we read the back? Oh my gosh, what do you see now? Whenever we teach books at school, for the first 2 lessons, we don't even open the book. The first lesson is we spend some extensive time looking at the front cover. We spend some time and we have a, what do you see? What do you think is going to happen? What do you predict? Can you justify your responses? It takes a long time, but imagine lesson 3, how ready and excited the child is to finally open the book. Now ask yourself about your practice when you have that intimate time with your child and you're reading to them. Are you getting them really excited? Or are you just, I've got to read this because apparently you've got to read to them every day, or we need to read to them because they're nagging me, or we just need to get them to bed, so let's get this over and done with, okay? When you're sharing books and you go to the library, let them choose a book, which is fine, but choose a book that might be in line with their interests, with their hobbies, that you can read to them. If a child really wants to read a book and you want to check that it's too hard, if it's suitable, we have like what we call a 5-finger test. We open up a random page and we ask the child to read it. If the child utters and stirs and doesn't recognize letters, and every time he doesn't recognize a word, you put a finger up. You put another finger up. If you get to 5 fingers, the likeliness is that the book is too hard for them. So then you just so you would just close the book and ask them to find another book. Yeah? So the 5-finger method of trying to see if a book is too hard for a child really works. And then when they keep bringing you books, as long as you can find a book that they can reasonably access, meaning your 5 fingers don't have to be raised, then it should be fine for the child. Take turns to read. Really good practice if you have a child who's struggling to read. Okay? Maybe that might look like you read a page, they read a paragraph, or you read together and you kind of use a lollipop stick or you use your finger to guide them. Reading together is really nice. It really supports your child. However, the key important aspect is that you can't lose the flow of the story because you're going back and forth over who's reading. So as long as the parent has in the mind that I'm going to read enough so the flow of the story isn't lost, but my child would read a paragraph here or a paragraph there, that's what you want, okay? If you start making them reading a slog, the child's not going to enjoy it. Build confidence. So on your slide, you can see some. Now, building confidence. I want to do an entire workshop on building confidence and positive reinforcement and how to frame words and frame sentences when you speak to your children. But these are some really nice examples. You sounded that out brilliantly, didn't you? I really like the way you read that bit in capital letters with a big voice. You will notice that the praise is very specific to something that they have actually done. I haven't said, well done. I haven't said, good. I haven't said, that was good reading. It's not specific enough. It doesn't motivate the child. If you highlight what they do good specifically, they will do it again and again, because what child doesn't enjoy being praised? You noticed that word didn't make sense, so you had another go. Well done. What are you showing them? It's absolutely okay to make mistakes. Well done. If it makes you think, you're learning. Okay? Really emphasize. Oh, I saw you had to reread that again. You had to use your sounds. You had to go back. But you did it. Let's read this together so you remember next time. I added these two myself because I think they're quite powerful. These might not sound very powerful, but just reflect it against what you are possibly saying when your child makes a mistake. If you have that, if you are honest enough and are able to reflect back on the statements you're making, then these statements are actually quite profound. And this is what I mean by framing. There's nothing really negative you should be saying to your child in their learning, because they're trying to learn. Okay? So you should just be framing it, motivating them, building resilience. People go on about building resilience, but this is how you build resilience, with how you speak to your child. Play with sounds. So there's a lot of games, a lot of avenues where you can, a lot of flashcards that you can just do to build on their phonics. The stronger their phonics is, then the more words they can access. Convince them they're not stupid. So when I'm speaking specifically to children who are struggling with reading, they may be very conscious that their peers are able to read stronger than they are. Just remind them, greats like Albert Einstein couldn't read very well. Okay? If your child is not reading well, it doesn't mean that they're stupid. So just keep that in mind. Avoid blame. What do you think this means, avoid blame? How can the child be in a situation? This is more on the parent, by the way.
Yeah, comparing them with their elder brother or like.
Comparing, yeah. Comparisons is so easy to fall into, especially in here, but it's really heartbreaking when the parent lets it be known, okay? When you start comparing siblings. Yeah, read to your child. Now again, this is one that's really not emphasized enough. Many parents have this mindset, if I'm reading to my child, then what is he or she learning? or if I read to my child, then I'm doing all the work. Yeah? The whole point of reading to your child is that it's enjoyable. It's really enjoyable. My strongest memory in primary school, if I was to ask you, can you remember when you were in school ever being read to? My experience is I remember when I was in year 6, I remember my teacher reading The Butterfly Line to me, by Michael Morpurgo. I loved that so much that every school that I've worked at, and I'm at my fourth school, I always read this book to my children because I remember it and I know the book so well. And because I know it so well, I'm able to impart it onto my children so well. The other thing is, people just enjoyed reading. When we spoke about the book club that I'm a part of, it has some conditions. This is probably why it's so successful. A, you don't have to do any reading outside of the book club. B, when you come to the book club, you could just listen while someone else is reading. So, and I normally do the reading, other people have their turn, but when I'm reading, Waleed's just listening, but Waleed's enjoying it because he doesn't have the cognitive load of having to read and have that, find it as a bit of a slog. The point is, we're men who are approaching our 40s who enjoy someone reading to us. Yeah? We are, why are you smiling? We are almost 40. Get over it, bro. No, speak for yourself. Sorry, I saw that you like way above. The point being that even you as a grown adult enjoy being read to. You might not notice it, but actually, the book club is an example that I'm reading to you, you're just sitting there. One or two brothers are on the phone, admittedly, but that's their own problems. But if you enjoy it, how much does your child enjoy it? In year 6, I teach in year 6, and I get all of my 27 children to come sit on the carpet. And it is the most enjoyable thing. And they're 10, 11-year-olds. They come, they sit on the carpet, and I read a story to them. And if you have the understanding that reading to your child is something that is limited to when they're 6 and 7, well, actually, teenagers, adults, enjoy being read to. So don't neglect it, because actually, reading to your child might be the one thing that invokes the passion into them to carry on reading. Use technology. Depending on your stance, of course. I think it's quite naive to think that you can put a big X through technology. However, of course, some of us jump to the opposite extreme and only rely on technology. Yeah. Big up the Kindle users. Tell them Usford is known. Whenever you need a book, Usford just sends you a PDF of the book. We're like, well, what about if you want to read the book, like physical copy? So yes, do use technology. I'm going to show a video now, which Ashfaq is nicely going to stand up and make sure it's working. This is just, it's a very basic video on what comprehension is. Just to make sure that the lights, I don't know how to do it. Can we do lights? We don't need the lights. Just for 5 minutes. Just so you have a secure understanding of what it actually means to comprehend, or what comprehension means. Right. And if you want to take any notes, you can. We got it, Ashfaq?
Reading comprehension is the ability to read a written text and understand its meaning. It relies on 2 interconnected abilities: word reading, being able to decode the words on the page, and language comprehension, being able to understand the meaning of those words, whether they're written down or just spoken. To read well, both abilities need to be taught and developed. When we read, we don't normally remember the exact words and phrases of the entire text. Instead, we build a mental model, a picture in our head of what's happening and what the text is telling us. The planet glowed brightly in the night sky. Our mental model grows as we read more of the text. We add to it or change it as we come across new ideas and new information. The clearer our mental model, the better our understanding of the whole text. And there are 4 factors that can help this model to grow: background knowledge, vocabulary, language structures, and inference. As we read, we connect the ideas and information in the text with our existing knowledge. If we've read other books about space or seen films about space travel, then we're likely to meet familiar ideas when we read another book set in space. For example, if the text says, With a crunch, a rocket touched down on the planet's rocky surface. The door of the ship slid open. Glancing nervously from side to side, an astronaut stepped onto the ground. We're told directly that the door opened and the astronaut left the rocket, but we have to use our background knowledge of astronauts and space travel to imagine what the astronaut looks like and what they're wearing. Knowing the meaning of the words we're reading is obviously very important for good comprehension. If we come across a new or unfamiliar word, we can use different strategies to ensure we still understand its meaning. The astronaut took out an aeromometer and began scanning. Aeromometer. I've not heard that word before. To work out the meaning, we might use the context. Here, the aeromometer could be some sort of technical device, as it's being used to scan for something. We might also check similar words to get clues. Aero sounds like it might be to do with the air. A meter sounds like a measuring device, like in thermometer or barometer. So, aeromometer might be a tool for measuring the air. Words on their own aren't necessarily enough to build understanding. It's not until we join them together that we can get a sense of their meaning. No result came from the device, so the astronaut waited. Here, understanding that the conjunction so means that one thing is the reason for another thing happening helps us to understand the sentence. The astronaut can't do anything before they get the result. A different conjunction would have given a very different meaning. No result came from the device while the astronaut waited. The use of the conjunction while suggests that although there was no immediate result, a result did come later. Often, good comprehension depends on understanding quite small details, such as knowing the meaning of a conjunction, so or while, or recognising exactly what a pronoun is referring to. It began to make a whirring sound. We need to know that the pronoun it is the aeromometer in order to follow what's happening. It's rare for a text to tell the reader everything they need to know. Often we have to infer or read between the lines to picture what's going on. Finally, a light on the display flashed green. The astronaut pressed a button on the helmet and the visor began to lift. In the story, we can infer, that the astronaut lifts the visor on the helmet because the planet's atmosphere is safe. The text doesn't tell us this, but we use our background knowledge of what a green light normally means to infer that it's signalling to the astronaut, OK, safe to take off the helmet. As it happens, the next line confirms the inference we made. Knowing that the air was safe to breathe, Captain Sarah of the Starship Endeavour was ready to begin her adventure in space. While each of the factors that help with comprehension can be taught and practiced directly, the best way to develop language comprehension is through talking, listening and reading as often and as widely as possible. In this way, children's reading will really, take off. So if you'll excuse me, I've got some important work to do.
Okay, so I wanted to just show that video because the next few slides, like I said, you're probably keen to know, well, what's reading look like in Growy and what's the objectives in school. So I won't go through the next 3 slides because it's relevant to your child. For example, if your child is in year 1, then you might just want to have a little read of this. Also though, if your child is year 1 and you want to know what year 2 objectives are, so you can stretch them or you know something to aim at, then have a look at year 2. And also if your child is in year 2, then I've also included the year 3 objective, so you can have a look at that. So just spend 2 minutes to just have a look at those slides that you have in front of you, because I won't be going over them, they're quite self-explanatory.
Remembering that as well.
Okay, just move on. Again, you can refer back to that in your own time. So the curriculum requirements. At school we have 8 main strands, which you can have a read of. But what I've done is, I've got a pack inside your green folders, which looks like this. And what it does is it takes a domain. The domain at the top is develop positive attitudes to reading. And then it says, so in year one, your child will select books for personal reading and give reasons for their choices. And it shows how each of the domain is developed all the way to year 6. So from year 4, so the strand doesn't change. The strand doesn't change, but the progression changes. So the progression from year 1 to year 6. So just have a look at this document. It's really important. And
Explain that again.
Sorry?
I don't understand what you're saying.
So these are the reading domains: strategies, understanding vocabulary, recording and presenting information, understanding the text, retrieving information. It's the same from year 1 to year 6. But the progression of how it becomes more challenging over the years is signposted. So this is what that same domain looks like in year 1, this is what it looks like in year 2, this is what it looks like in year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6. It's just a very important document to have to hand. And one thing I will say is, reading is a bit different to like maths, where, well, probably not in maths, well, the other subjects. Other subjects, a child might be really strong in their maths, but it's not likely that they are more than a year above their level. There might be great depth, they might have really strong number sense, but conceptually they may not understand fractions, or it just hasn't been taught to them. Reading, if your child is reading every single day, building their vocabulary, and has this wide breadth of reading, then it's quite possible that even when they're in year 5, even when they're 8, 9, that they're reading at the same level of a 14-year-old or a 15-year-old. It's really possible. I've had children in every school that I've worked in, very few, but every time, because I always teach year 6, and we have a way of assessing that I have an 11-year-old reading at the level of a 14-year-old, reading at the level of a 15-year-old. Because imagine if your child is reading every single day, you have your own library, you go to the library, you ask questions, you test their comprehension, you're working solid on their reading. Versus a child who only ever reads in school, and reading isn't a focus in their lives full stop. The disparity is huge, okay? So that's why, if you're very passionate of reading in your household, I don't want to put a lid on what your child should be able to do. So it's good for you to have an awareness of how you could stretch them, okay? So just spend a few minutes having a look at these. Does that make sense? Sometimes in my head it makes sense. And I'll just give you about 2 minutes again, just have a brief look at that. It's more important to kind of, like I said, as co-teachers, to have these documents. Okay. If I could bring you back in just because we need to be done by 1 o'clock, so I'm just going to put my foot on the pedal a bit more. Again, that's something for you. You're going to keep these folders, you can refer back to them, and it's really good to give you direction. This is really important. This is a curriculum map. It's important for 2 reasons. That some of these books, this is actually the curriculum map that the Grow reuse. However, we have a mixed one, so ours is year 1 and year 2 combined. However, I've given them separately, so you can really hone in for specific books that you want for your children, or that you may want for your children. Now, another misconception that many parents have is that they are unaware of what amazing books are available for their children. And I really would advocate that you budget some money, about £100, and buy some solid brand new books for your children. Obviously, depending on personal circumstances and Facebook Market is a great thing, but you can find there are some amazing books. So I want to give out some books just for you to have a look at, and you can use the curriculum map to think, oh, is this for my son's age or for my daughter's age, or actually, can my son access this year 2 book or whatever have you, okay? I have got some, what's the word? What's that word? Curveball. I have a curveball in some books, simply because you as a parent also have a job to make sure that what's being read is suitable for your child, okay? So if you do identify a curveball, I haven't just done that because, I did it on purpose basically. So have a look at these books and ask yourself, do the books I have at home, are there of, do we have really nice books? Can we improve on our books? More books? No.
Just a rainbow one.
So these are, so this scheme, the best thing about the scheme that we're using is that the quality of books are really, really good. And by the way, once you're done, feel free to pass them around to other tables. Are you familiar with any of these titles, anyone? But I'm just thinking, like, if you had some of these on your quote-unquote bookshelf, and you really made a big deal out of the writing and the pictures and the imagery, do you think it would help? Do you think your child would be more enthusiastic about reading? If you want to write some of these titles down, you can, or you can circle them on the curriculum map and you can purchase them.
Oh, is this on? Are these books on here?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Is it on the year 2 one?
If anyone has the Cave Baby, if I ask you to not purchase that, because that's actually the book that we want to cover at the Growery. Is anybody else a Cave Baby?
You know there's 10 sessions, 2 weeks. What dictates this? Is that what it was done when it's done in school? Obviously.
But typically probably longer than that.
So that's quite.
Sorry, those are curveballs. They're not taught at that age.
Oh, right.
Well, actually there are, but they're a lot more subtle. I have a lovely book.
We're surrounded with year 2 people.
But you can hold it.
This is a year 3 one.
Okay. So what's your general thoughts of the books, anyone? Sarah, any thoughts?
I think they're quite captivating.
Captivating, nice word. Silver, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think some of them, this one in particular, there's a orangutan in my bedroom. Yeah, it's really lovely. It draws on really big issues like deforestation, and then how you can tackle that by sending out letters and getting in touch with political ideas.
Some really nice quality books, and actually this scheme and these books have really propelled the reading at my current school, because they're really nice. Obviously I put one of these curveballs in, not in the name of fear mongering, just for you to have a realization that I haven't just got this. This is a book that was actually taught at my school. It was actually taught with my year 4s, and I remember the reason I came across this book was because we were obliged as teachers that we had to have a display which was dedicated to LGBTQ. And when this book was taught, my entire year 4s went on a pride march through the school. So they did a pride march with the flags, many Muslim peoples, and they were so really passionate about it. And the reason they were so passionate about it is because the person who the story is about, he was assassinated in this book because he was gay. And it just highlights actually that, they have, for them, they're like, oh, he was killed because, he wasn't allowed to. And it's got some really problematic themes. If you actually read, I think you've got another one. Will you tell me, or did you move it around? And some parents, some of you didn't even pick it up, even though there's a LGBTQ flag. There's a flag right at the front. And again, my grandpa, this is not like to fearmonger, this is actually taught in my school, and so just, the lesson is, remember you have an onus as a parent to make sure you double check to know what your child's reading. And to be honest, you probably won't be very good at that unless you are reading, you're spending time to go through the books yourselves. But really good quality books. My overarching point is as well to please invest some time, invest some money, have a bookshelf for your children, have some really good quality books. Picture books are really nice. They are expensive though. They are expensive. So, but some friends, we just went to some charity shops to buy some books. There's a charity shop in Windsor, fantastic. They've got a whole floor dedicated to really good quality books. I actually found the book Bigu there. Really good quality books in Windsor, and Henley apparently have a really good charity shop for books.
Oxfam.
Sorry?
Oxfam.
Was it Oxfam in Henley? Yeah.
Oxfam in Henley and Windsor.
Yeah. So just to summarise, ensure your child reads every day and that you read to your child every day. Every day must follow habit. If you're wondering why we are adamant on the reading records and why the reading records are checked daily, because we understand the importance that it must be done daily, and we need you to share that vision. So if you feel that you're being nagged or pressured or a bit frustrated that we're always on the reading records, it's because it's a necessary component. Ain't that right, Ustada?
Yes, my tip to parents is if you prepare your child to go to bed, okay, and they're now winding down, and you do your ritual of going to the bathroom, brushing the teeth, getting changed, getting into bed, spend 10 minutes of your time get into bed or sit by them and listen to them read, or you read to them, you read with them, and you look at the pictures and you discuss things, and they're winding down, and they will develop a habit of when they're growing up, and they'll pick up a book and go to bed, and they will read for 15-20 minutes and drop off to sleep. It also encourages them then that they can pick up a textbook from school and they can read and learn, and it's a whole, it's a whole process of learning. It's a whole process. So if you can, emphasize, get them to go to bed at a certain time so that you have this whole ritual, and they listen or they read to you, or so it's a fun thing. It's a relaxing, fun time. It's fun
Thank you.
as well. Children don't like going to bed. I know. Children will
I love
fight
going to
to,
bed.
yeah, will fight to the end. But
Thank you so much. Be active in developing your child's vocabulary and spend some good time on that. Have an understanding of how reading progresses to support your child's reading journey. Seek out different reading opportunities, which we spoke about, and purchase high quality books. I know I use the term purchase kind of lightly, but not so lightly. But there is something about having a range of brand new books, which is really nice. But obviously, each to their own in terms of affordability. That's it from me. I have just one final request. A, if there are any questions, I'll take them. B, I've given out some post-it notes. It's really good for us at the brewery and to have some feedback. So if you have anything about what you liked about today, what went well, a post-it note. If you have some constructive feedback to give, and if you have any areas actually for further workshops or any other business, just write it on the post-it note. You don't have to write your name on it. Just make sure it's readable, please. And then post them up, and then you're free to go. Are there any questions?